Yes, we are. Okay. Right. Good evening and welcome to the East Devon District Council Scrutiny Committee meeting of the 4th of September 2025. I am your chair, Councillor Mike Goodman. This meeting is being recorded and is live on the Council's YouTube channel. There is no fire alarm drill anticipated today, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building through the nearest fire exit by following the green running man signs above the doors and make your way to the rear of the car park. The organiser of the meeting will tell you when it is safe to return. Please make sure all your phones are either muted or switched off. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting. Any members of the public who want to view the agenda can do so by visiting the website www.eastdevon.gov.uk. Now, before we start the meeting, I am very sad to share the news that councillor and member of this committee, Andrew Toy, passed away at the weekend. And we send our deepest condolences to Andrew's family and friends at this difficult time. He was an important member of this committee, and I'd like to acknowledge Andrew's contribution to this committee by holding a minute's silence. Can I ask you just to bow your heads for 1 minute, please? Thank you. We will now start the meeting with a roll call of committee members present, which will include declarations of interest. When you hear your name, please unmute your microphone and confirm you are present. And please state whether you have any declaration of interest in items on the agenda or not. So can we go to committee members first?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Barlow.
Present and no declarations that I'm aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blakey.
Present and no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Jenny Brown. No. Councillor Chapman. No. Councillor Davey.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Goodman.
Present and no declaration of interest.
Thank you. Councillor McKinder.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. And Councillor Whibley's not here. Thank you, Chair. The meeting is quorate.
Thank you. Now, are there any councillors not in the committee but here who want to declare any interest at all? No? Fine. So, if we go to item 1, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 10th of July 2025, pages 3 and 8 of your agenda. Now, does any councillor have any comments on the minutes of the previous meeting held on this date? Or can we agree those minutes? Agreed. Thank you. So, agenda item and apologies. How many we actually got of apologies? Do you want me to read them out? Will you read them out? Yeah. Right, I've got Councillor Bethany Collins, Councillor Anne Hall, Councillor Matt Hall, Councillor Artnell, Councillor Johns, Councillor Levine, and also Councillors Paul Hayward and Jeff Young. Are there any other apologies from anyone? No? So let's go on to item 3, declaration of interest. We've done that. Item 4, public speaking. We have nobody registered to speak tonight. Matters of urgency, agenda item 5, there are none. Agenda item 6, confidential items, there are none. Decisions made by Cabinet, including portfolio areas called in by members for scrutiny in accordance with the overview and scrutiny procedure rule, there are none. Item 8, which is the first substantial item on our agenda, which is the East Devon Safeguarding Annual Review, pages 9 and 14 of your agenda. And I'm pleased to say we have Matt Blythe with us, but before he introduces it, I'm going to ask Councillor Loudon to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak as a portfolio holder. I hope before the meeting finishes you don't get sick of my voice, because I'm going to ask to come in before the next item as well. So we're dealing with the annual review of safeguarding for the previous year. And as colleagues will know, there's been correctly increased member awareness of safeguarding and related matters over the recent few years. This report provides a broad outline of the important key safeguarding activities undertaken across this council in the previous year. As a result of greater staff awareness and training, you will note that there's been an increased number of year-on-year referrals. This report shares some of the types of circumstances that staff are reporting, thus allowing the various agencies to investigate and support vulnerable and at-risk residents within East Devon. As portfolio holder, I hope that Councillor Wibley, who has recently taken up his role as member champion for safeguarding, will eventually be able to concur with me that staff across the council are now far more aware and alert to situations that they find residents in and where they're concerned enough to warrant a safeguarding referral. This all comes from the council making safeguarding a far more visible, focused and prioritised challenge that staff are required to look towards, are trained to identify and become alert and aware of. So, Chair, I commend the report to the committee, and I hope you'll join me in thanking staff for their vigilance in looking out for and acting on behalf of our vulnerable residents. And I also ask that you thank Dave and Matt here for their leadership in this important area. So I commend the report to this committee, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Loudon says, this is an update report from the work we carried out over 24-25 period. So there's no actual areas for decision other than to note the content and obviously to ask us any questions that we can help the committee with. So as we know, East Devon District Council are committed to safeguarding from harm all children, young people and adults with care and support needs using any council service. And we've got a number of statutory obligations with regards to safeguarding. And as members will remember, we've got a safeguarding policy which was introduced in March 2024, which is due for a review at the end of this year into 2026. So a few things just to pick up on. As Councillor Loudon's already suggested, we have seen an increase in the number of safeguarding referrals for adults in 2024-25 compared to 23-24. We've gone up from 94 to 65. Based on the assessment that we've carried out, we do see this as a reflection of greater awareness within the staff regarding the need to make referrals. We do have a policy of generally asking officers to go where they're gut on these things. There's never any negativity associated with making an unnecessary referral. I expect to do that and to miss one. So we do think that has been a significant in the increase. As you probably won't be surprised to hear, the vast majority of our submissions come from housing, because they're the ones who are most likely to deal with people who have that need, but we also have revenue and benefits as well. What you'll also notice is that whilst with the majority are adult related, we do make a few in terms of children as well. It's a slightly different process. It goes through the multi-agency safeguarding hub rather than through the Devon Safeguarding Partnership. But ultimately, the outcome is the same. We've only had 3 of those in last year, which is the same as the previous year. Again, just reflecting the sort of the nature of our customers and where we come across people. One thing we do notice, though, is that where we have with the adults an opportunity for feedback we don't get that same opportunity with children, and that's just an interesting foible of the system, and something we have flagged in a recent Section 11 audit, which I'll reflect on in a bit later on. But we do keep, even though the submission numbers are low, we do keep that awareness high and make sure that we are aware of the potential to make referrals in relation to children. As already mentioned, the safeguarding policy is due for review this year, and that's going to be a piece of work that we're undertaking towards the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026. And we also just mentioned as well that because this came out about the same sort of time about disclosure barring service disclosures for counsellors, we carried out some work around that about the same time, and we're now pleased to say that everybody who needs one has got one, and it's published on the website. The policy does outline that we have certain responsibilities within the organisation. So we have various safeguarding leads from a corporate, and that's our Director for Housing and Health for counsellors, which is the portfolio holder, in this case John Loudon. We have a counsellor safeguarding champion, Joe Wibley, and an officer safeguarding champions who are our assistant directors and directors. And then David, to my right here, he's our safeguarding forum chair, and we also have an operational lead who works in this area of community safety and social behaviour, which has a linkage. So the Safeguarding Forum is an officer forum for discussion about safeguarding issues, and that forum is a really valuable opportunity for mainly operational staff to come together and actually work together on safeguarding issues, so we can horizon scan, look at the sort of issues that are coming forward, get feedback from reviews that have been carried out, these safeguarding adult reviews which are carried out at a local level that we can take reflection on, and then also we can do specific cases within the council as well. And then the safeguarding champion role was introduced with the policy previously. The current member champion is Joe Wibley, and as I've already mentioned, we have a number of ADs and directors who are our officer champions, and they meet on a 6 monthly basis. And again, there's that view that we should share that not only within the organisation, but also with the members as well, so that they have the right information with which to go out and speak to their residents, the people within their areas, and trying to give that all-encompassing approach to safeguarding. Safeguarding training is a significant part of what we do within the council, and we have various levels of training that are available within the council to officers. So we've got the sort of the passive stuff that sits there on the internet and intranet, so people can pick those up. And then we also have 2 sets of online safeguarding training, which are set now as mandatory training. That's currently being updated at the moment on a corporate level. And what we'll find, having done the review recently, is the vast majority of us have had the training, but some of it is a little bit out of date and needs to be updated. So we're running at about 2/3, 60%. And we're currently working hard to get that number back up to so it's all current. So the vast majority of people have the training, it's just a little bit out of date, and we're working on that one. We also offer a level 3 safeguarding face-to-face course. So this is for those officers who are maybe more operationally likely to come across people with safeguarding needs. So we've got currently 109 officers who are trained to that level, with more courses booked in October this year and March next year. And the other thing that we will do is we've got officers like David, our community safety lead, Mel, who are able to go out and actually deliver one-to-one training, team training internally as required. So if there are particular issues that get picked up, they can do that. I think the other thing to mention as well is this Section 11 audit, and this is Section 11 of the Children Act. It's a self-audit that is required for us to carry out by Devon County Council, and as I say, it's in relation to child safeguarding. However, what it does mean is that it's identified a few areas for us to have a look at. I will mention some of that in a bit more detail, but one of the areas is training, so we'll make sure we're getting on with that. Member training has not been run since 2023, so we had 31 members at the time who were trained at the time. And what we're looking to do is to work with Democratic Service to ensure that is updated so that all members have the appropriate level of training. We have an internal system using FirmStep for making submissions for adult safeguarding to the County Council. I say because of the foible of the children's system, we can't do that because we have to run by their process, which obviously makes it doesn't stop the notification process, but maybe stops it makes it hard to get information back on it. Then we also have various panels that we take part in, things like the antisocial behaviour intervention and prevention panels, which are more towards a community safety aspect, but there's a significant crossover with safeguarding as well. How can we use that for information intelligence regarding any particular issues around, particularly around children safeguarding, and something similar as well that we do around adults. And we're also, which then leads on to partnership work. So we're members of the Devon District Safeguarding Network. That's representatives of Devon Safeguarding Children Partnership and the Torbay Devon Safeguarding Adult Partnerships. And that means that we're tied into any national or local information regarding safeguarding. And it means that we're cited on any developments that come out locally or nationally. As I've already mentioned, we did carry out this self-assessment under Section 11 of the Children's Act. Came through the Devon Safeguarding Partnership. Overall, we assessed ourselves as good. And I think there's always a temptation to think that, well, if we're doing a self-assessment, we have rose-tinted glasses on it, which we've tried very hard not to do, and be objective about it. So overall, we did think we had good standards in terms of governance, policy and procedures, DBS checks and training record keeping, but we have identified a few areas. So we've already discussed training. It needs a little bit of work. We've got to do carry out our review of the policy and make sure it still reflects the updated Working Together in 2023 guidance, and a commitment that our recruitment is in line with safer recruitment processes. We're also active members of the Exeter Missing and Child Exploitation meetings, which is aimed at preventing children and young people from being exploited by working together as a partnership. And we're also part of the local prevent work, which supports a local channel process. And channel is a multi-agency approach to safeguarding and supporting individuals vulnerable to radicalisation and extremism. So, and that's another collaborative effort between local authorities and statutory partners like social services, education and the police. And it means that we can identify anyone who's at risk and to put in measures to try and assist and prevent the radicalisation process. And we also contribute through, again, this is more of a community safety aspect, but then brings in the safeguarding domestic homicide reviews. So where there is a homicide, we have a member of the team who will attend those part of review and to make sure that any learning around what led to that is implemented locally, and we take those forward. And we also work with our partners around modern slavery and ensure that we're signed up to the various protocols and memorandums of understanding that are appropriate. So going forwards, the focus for this year, as it is now, is to review the policy and make sure that's up to date, learning from the external audits and the national guidance, and we're also working to ensure we've got full oversight for referrals being made into the two safeguarding partnerships, so we monitor effectiveness and taking learning points forward. Obviously the training aspect is one that is quite important as well going forwards. So I think 24-25, having done a lot of work at the beginning of 24 to get the policy in, was very much about embedding the new policy and make sure it's working, and getting some of the structures in place behind it. So 25-26 is looking how can we develop stronger processes and make sure that we have increased safeguarding partnership links. So if we have any questions, both myself and Dave, happy to help.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about this report is how many agencies and multi-agency bodies are regularly meeting. And I did pick up on the ASB, the Anti-Social Behaviour Intervention and Prevention Panel. And I'm sure, like other councillors, I probably get more complaints about antisocial behaviour than anything else. And I just wondered whether that body is able to help councillors with issues of antisocial behaviour, or whether it's working at a higher level. And basically, what's the best way to deal with these complaints of antisocial behaviour? There are some that are perennial. Dave will know all about the regular complaints we get about boy racers on Exmouth seafront, but some are quite local and involve small groups of young people who are causing problems in quite clearly defined areas. So I just wondered whether, basically, what's the best approach a councillor can take?
Thank you. probably sits slightly, because there's that linkage across, like you say, into the antisocial behaviour area, and this is probably slightly more into that. Still linkages, obviously, so it's really important that we do pick it up. Melody Trott is our antisocial behaviour and community safety lead, and she would be the best person in terms of taking it forward. So you mentioned about the antisocial driving in Exmouth, and that's something that I know she's working with the local police and other agencies, for instance, like the Gardent Marshals that we have down in Exmouth at the moment. So that is an area that she would particularly pick up on. So that's probably the best focus in. The other thing to mention as well, it's literally just happened in the last few months, is there was previously we had the local action groups for antisocial behaviour. We've now started those back up again. They're now been a bit rebranded into community safety groups. So they're acting in the 5 main areas, if you like, within the district. So we've just had those, and they're meeting on a regular basis now, which I can send more information out. They've literally just had their first meetings in the last sort of month or so. And that's a good opportunity to bring together all the different partnerships within that local area. I know Exmouth has got quite a well-established one, and then we've got one now in some of the other areas too, which we support. And I can provide more information about that if that's of help.
Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Very good report, obviously. 31 members have taken the training, and you're going to do more training. Do you know when that's going to happen yet? That's the first question. Second question is, obviously we've had a 50% increase from 65 to 94, 50%-ish, this year on thing. Do we get feedback from who we're reporting to as to, was it a good referral or was it wasting their time? Not wasting their time, obviously, because it's better to err on the side of caution, but it's I just want to see whether it's working.
Thanks for that. I'll deal. So the process that we use is what's ensured the fact that we capture those numbers. So historically, I would have had to have gone and spoken to one of my colleagues in Devon County Council to identify the number that we've submitted. What we found is by having a more secure internal process, we're aware of the ones that get submitted, and we are able to ensure the fact that our staff are putting that information up. We are still submitting the same number that go through and end up being a Section 42 concern that's raised by the adults. We are probably along the lines of the national average, which sits at a fifth of the number that go up as a concern actually end up being a safeguarding concern that's raised. I think that's the numbers that we look at, but we are along the national average. And we're hoping to improve by the training that we deliver and the bespoke training that we do, that we increase the number of good referrals that actually go to a safeguarding concern rather than the other routes that are available to them. So you can put a safeguarding report up, but actually it's more likely about a mental health concern. So we're looking at how we can take that forward next year by increasing that number. Sorry, Paul.
Sorry, and can we report that? Is that possible to say we put 95 in and our fifth was this, or it was a little bit more than that, to say if our quality of reporting is improving, if you like?
Currently, that isn't available to us, and it's one of those challenges that we want to take back to Devon County Council in regards to that reporting mechanism, so that we get that feedback loop. That currently isn't in process, but it's one of those things that we want to try and take through to 25-26. And the training aspect with regards to members, that's down to my capability and time to be able to deliver it, but it will be something that I will look to work with Andrew with regards to getting in as soon as we can. And it will be almost like a bite-sized session to work on what was already done. So. Yeah.
Sorry, I think we had the training. I think it was done by an outside team, from the beginning. Yeah.
Chair, I wonder if I can come back on something that Councillor Barlow's just raised, the issue of training. And I hear what Dave says, and I'm not sure it should fall necessarily on Dave's shoulders alone. And I'm very happy to talk to Councillor Jackson, who has responsibility for the Member Development Working Group, which would be the responsible body that, as members, that we would be looking at our training. and excuse me, and I know that on her list of to-do, a bit like Dave and everybody else, reviewing the whole aspect of member training, and particularly the mandatory. And I think this is, if I recall, this is mandatory, which is a bit of an anxiety if only 50% of us have complied. Anyway, but I will commit to taking that back and talking to Sarah about this.
Mel?
Just to add to that, so the working group have come up with a plan in terms of all the things that they want covered in terms of mandatory training, and the democratic team are just starting to program in when those sessions will happen. So that is very much in train.
If I can come back, Chair, obviously it says that staff have to be retrained every 3 years. Obviously, the training that we had in 23 is now going to be in 26 is the natural time I would have thought to do it. And we had that in May, June. So again, and I know a lot of the people that didn't take the training had said that they had done it through their work, or certainly the people I knew, you know, because of work they did, so it was done. So it just seems that if we could say that it would be done, completed by June next year, that would be a good thing to do, which would then mean that everyone has their 3 years update then, same as staff. Thank you.
Councillor, I think that's a very good point in regards to if people, I know that there are a number of councillors who are very heavily involved with regards to safeguarding. So actually the training that I would give as a bespoke 1 hour wouldn't even reach the level of what they're already got, and duplication of people's time when it's unnecessary. It's along the lines of actually, is there a more intricate way that we can capture those that have got had safeguarding training within the required time and it's at the right level, rather than wasting someone's time who actually is a much higher level, like Councillor Wibbly. So I'll look at that in the
I think it's true to say that many of us are either welfare officers or part of the church where you've got to do all this training. It's whether or not that's sufficient, and that I don't know. And I think that piece of work would be very valuable because it's really important to us as a council to get it right. Okay, nothing else, and I'll just do a couple of lines if I might. I understand why in the beginning you didn't mention it, but it's in the report. The qualities is low risk. It is, but actually it's the most important risk when you're in the operation, because it is these people that we need to help. I think it's a really good report, very positive report, and I just want to commend you for what you said in the end, your conclusion. When what you're going to do, we are looking at how we can develop stronger process and increase safeguarding partnership. So you're not standing still, it's how you can improve. And I think that's really good, because often we get with reports, we're doing a good job, but actually the way we get better is continue to improve. And I was delighted to see that in. I think that's the right thing. Now, given what you've said about the training, should we put that in as a recommendation from us, or do we have it as read that you're going to do it? I don't mind which would be the best way to do it. In.
Well, Melanie nodded, so I presume that's a done deal.
Okay.
You can be reassured that's very much on the member development working group's top priority. And obviously Dave is already liaising with Andrew, so that will absolutely be done. So.
And I presume, Chair, it would be in the minutes that it will be completed by June next year.
I think it would be helpful.
Yeah.
So I'd like to take...
Quick question, if I may. Is it fair to assume that those members who have not taken the training yet, the 50%, will get individual emails and tell them it's got to be done?
Yeah, and I'd add to that, then also the group leaders as well is really critical in that as well, making sure that happens.
And Chair, if we could ask them, instead of just saying they must do it, either they must do it, or can they prove that there is a good level of training already done, so that we don't want to waste their time?
Yeah, we need some follow-up, and I think that's going to come. In summary, I would like to thank both of you for this report. Oh, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, Chair, I've got a couple of comments. I mean, again, like the Chair said, I commend you for the report. A couple of questions if I could ask. I note that you talked about this horizon scanning and learnings from existing issues that we've already dealt with. Do you have any, I mean, you won't have exact numbers, but how often do those things lead to a change of policy or practice? I mean, I know you're about to revise the policy anyway, but that would give us some idea as to, well, we're about right, because we find that the learnings when we review them or the horizon scanning is not actually throwing up new stuff that we didn't consider, or you know, there aren't serious holes in our existing system.
Councillor, so thanks. It's about the horizon scanning to understand what are the implications, where we need to put greater training. So last year we looked at hoarding and self-neglect, which are our biggest concerns in regards to our adults at risk. Through the private sector housing, Martin Prue, we did some work with charities and we got some specific training. So it will influence where our training goes to. But it will also influence with regards to where we focus, and we will try and debrief where we can. And then our idea is to be able to get the right processes in place for the people who need that. So rather than referring them as a safeguarding concern, which is what we do at the moment, we build that confidence within the staff, so the fact that the officers can make the referral into the right place or call a multi-agency meeting. So we may not see any developments, but I expect to see the fact that there will be a difference in focus around what training we deliver and regards to the processes we use. We're going to look, if we can, to be able to also increase how we can capture those that don't quite meet the threshold. So with regards to safeguarding for adults, there's a threshold that you need to meet before you can make a safeguarding referral, but actually it's about understanding that threshold, and if they don't meet the threshold, how can we support them with greater signposting to organisations who can provide that support. So is that okay?
If I could ask another question and then one minor point. So I think as Councillor Barlow has picked up on, the number of safeguarding referrals has increased year on year. Do we have any way of being able to explain that? Obviously, it's that external factors. So, for instance, cost of living is driving some of our residents into difficult places where these things become an issue, or more concerning for us as a council, is it something about the way we're interacting with our residents that's causing more of these to happen? And we need to make sure it's not us that's causing it, and we're doing what we can to help people in difficult circumstances.
Thank you, Councillor. I think that the work that my colleague Melody Trott has done in regards to hand-holding, regards to staff and giving them that forum to be able to speak at an operational level has given them the confidence to be able to start and do better reporting and more confident to say, I've seen this, we need to deal with this. And so therefore I think it's that confidence that comes from her hand-holding of the other members of staff that we've got down operationally.
If I may, Chair, just to amplify what Dave has just said to you, and that is, and we find that, don't we, when we're improving our processes, we're improving the awareness of staff to something, then we sometimes see an increase in whatever it is that we're looking at. And this, in part, may be a positive. I mean, sometimes the police talk about an increase in reported crime, and they say that's a positive because people are able to, they're more confident to be able to do so. So I wouldn't wish to be complacent in looking at the 50% or so increase, but if we can put some of it down to greater awareness and greater ability of staff to feel confident, then that's a real positive thing, and it bodes well for the future.
Thank you. And just one minor thing. In the safeguarding champions section, the last sentence, I believe the word member should be officer. It talks about the senior officers from all services currently act as member champions. I think they're probably officer champions. Thanks.
Thank you. And I want to reiterate what John said earlier about thanking Matt and David for this report. And I think it just shows the importance this council plays in safeguarding. For this report to come to scrutiny, I don't know if it's usual for it to come to scrutiny, but I welcomed it. I think it's a really good report. And I'm just going to repeat, it demonstrates the importance this council gives to safeguarding. And I think it's really important that continues. Right, well, thank you very much indeed. So can I move on to the next item? And I'm going to hand back to Matt, which is item 9, which is a review of emergency and planning.
Well, before, Chair, sorry to
sorry.
butt in, but before you bring Matt in,
Oh,
if
sorry,
if
yes,
you don't,
forgotten you.
I'm desperate to steal his thunder. And before I do, I just want to pick up a point that you made in the previous item about the positivity, the positiveness that you picked up upon in the way in which the report was put across to you and the information. And all I can say is I've had the pleasure of working alongside Matt and Dave for the last couple of years, you know, at a distance, And I have to say, I think you're quite right. There is a real positivity in the approach, and that's great. Anyway, enough of the backslapping. I'm reporting. I'm introducing this report on emergency planning and responses, as quite literally within the last day or so, this has morphed across to my portfolio, and I think it's caught a number of us unawares. So I would like to take this opportunity, and she's in the room, to record my thanks to Councillor Marion Rickson for previously steering this item over recent years. So this report, it provides a comprehensive oversight of the important areas of responsibility within this over the last year. By their very nature, planning for and responding to emergencies requires this council and its staff to be well prepared, well trained, well organised, with clear and focused leadership. And I hope that this committee will agree with me that this report shows from the activities shown here in the previous year that this council and its staff are well prepared to be able to effectively respond to whatever occurs. However, saying that, anticipating future occurrences can't be an exact science, as sadly the people in Lisbon found yesterday to their sad cost. And therefore, being versatile and flexible, as staff are key to rising to the challenges that come their way. So I hope that this committee will find this report both reassuring and informative, and recognise the hard work and preparedness that staff put into helping support residents and businesses when things go drastically awry, as I mentioned just now, they always do, sadly. So, Chair, I hope you and the committee can welcome this report.
Thank you. Matt.
Thank you, Chair. So once again, what's in front of the committee tonight is an overview of the work we've carried out in 24-25 regarding emergency planning. And that's another area that sits with myself and David to the right of me here. So there's a little bit of introductory information there that just outlines our role in the wider partnership working around emergency planning. So we are designated as a Category 1 responder to emergencies in the Civil Contingencies Act. And that means that we have legal responsibilities in relation to the response to and management of and recovery from any emergencies. And as you can appreciate, we work in a much wider partnership, and that is known as the Local Resilience Forum. We work within Devon, Cornwall and Isles of Scilly, and that's the police, fire service, county council, Environment Agency, lots of other partners who we all come together and make sure we're all going the right direction. I think it's fair to say that, you know, often within the sort of major emergencies, the district counts as a relatively small part in the scheme of things, but particularly when it comes to recovery, we have a major part to play. So it's really important that we're on top of these things. And of course, because we have these responsibilities, we employ David here as our Emergency Planning and Business Continuity Officer, and he tries to ensure that we're going the right direction as a Category 1 responder. What I would say is it has been acknowledged that having a single emergency plan officer is a risk. It's a single point of failure, and we're looking to do some work around that to actually make sure that we have greater resilience within the team to cover that off. So we're just going through that process at the moment. So in terms of the overview of the work in 24-25, you won't be surprised to hear that weather's been a significant issue for us when responding to incidents, and there's a little list there of some of the issues that we had to deal with. Main ones are things like the flooding that we had on the River Axe, nothing to the extent that we had in 2023 when we had the issues in Newton Poplarford in that area, but we still had to respond to those. And we've had a number of severe weather events, such as the storms, where we had a couple of pre-event telephone conferences. So we had to take part in those. And there's an example there of one where we had a number of children who were impacted by the snow and ice, who were held out of school by a rail provider that we had to get involved with. So numerous weather events, but then there are also some specific areas of work as well that have come up, things like avian flu, blue-tongue industrial action, where we've had to consider what the impacts of things like the doctor strike would have impact on us. Cliff Falls is another one. We have the airport here, and we have to make sure that we're aware of any incidents there. We had a couple of unexploded ordnance issues. The big one was down in Plymouth, which you think was nothing to do with us, but there is a knock-on effect, and because we're part of the wider local resilience forum, there might have been requests for assistance outside the area, so we kept a close eye on that one. And then we've also been involved in some of the protests that were held in Plymouth and Exeter last year. So far, like I say, in 24-25, we had 15 response activations across the forum, with a further 3 notification of incidents for awareness. So we also had things like the crypto outbreak in South Devon, which again we kept a watching brief on, because you never know if something like that could extend. So a couple of things around the weather events. As we know, that the weather is changing over time, and that has an impact on us as emergency responders. And what we've found is that now there's a huge amount of information that comes out, and what we see as a really important role for us is to make sure that information is actually spread properly. So where the Met Office are giving the weather impacts, we make sure those are distributed. We now have the health warnings for hot and cold weather, which again we distribute to vulnerable individuals. The Environment Agency generate flood alerts, which again we're able to utilise in our local networks. And also, even though we don't have any surface water warnings, we've got a service that our insurers provide, which was, if I'm honest, it's still early days, isn't it? It's fair to say it's not the finished article yet, but it's helping us to sort of build up a bit of knowledge about where we might have some risks to, for instance, to our housing properties. So we've got a lot of information out there that we try and utilise and make sure it's disseminated as best we can, so everyone's aware of what's going on. So as I say, plenty of stuff coming through from the weather side of things. We do now get message out to our parish clerks and other identified community members, part of our community resilience network, so they can get all our amber warnings and flood warnings, but potentially some specific Met Office warnings as well. And the other thing to bear in mind is as well, we've had a couple of the government's emergency alert activations, one of which was related to a red warning for wind in December 24, and also the World War II bomb that was in Plymouth that I mentioned earlier. So those would have been of interest. But the other thing to remember as well is this Sunday at 3 p.m, the emergency alert system will be tested. So good one to get that out so everyone knows it's coming, so they don't panic at 3 o'clock on Sunday when they get a sudden noise out of the phone. One of the key pieces of work that we've developed in 2023 and we've kicked on with again with this year is the emergency duty officer role. It's absolutely key to our delivery of the emergency response out of hours, and we've got currently 13 senior leadership team members who voluntarily staff this over a rota, week on at a time, and we reviewed that in February, and everyone was sort of happy that it was in the right direction. Obviously, again, that idea of developing continuous improvement, trying to make sure it's going in the right direction, but generally working well. And they respond to any out-of-hours emergencies. It was originally designed purely for response to LRF type emergencies. In reality, we will pick up other things that are not business as usual, but need a senior manager intervention. So they will be picked up, but they're not there for business as usual type things. And that is supported by Home Safeguard, who take the calls and pass them on and make sure that we're appraised of what's going on. And there have been a number of outputs produced, which include the Emergency Officer Duty Manual, various logs and recording systems, the work with the Home Safeguard team, and we've also organised half a day's tactical training course, which we work with Devon County Council. And it's just to mention as well that the EDO is likely to be impacted by the corporate out-of-hours review that's currently being undertaken. It's probably like to increase the number of people on the rota, but obviously we're waiting to see. It won't make significant change to actual delivery, I don't think. I think one of the big things I'd really like to emphasise in this report is the development of the community network. Where we had the floods in Newton Poplar flood in 2023, it gave a really useful insight into the local workings around the parishes and the local people who were involved. And I have to give real credit to Dave. He's picked up on that and he's worked really heavily with the parish councils down there, and he's looking to extend that model wider. So there's been a couple of key areas there. So we had the Axminster public drop-in February 2025, 100 people in attendance. The reason why Axminster was particularly picked up because we have regular flooding in the Waycroft area, so it tends to be an area of particular interest, so we're able to bring different parts in to come talk to the local populace there. And then we had a follow-up meeting in Newton Poppleford as well with approximately 40 attendees with various, and you can see it's not just about the sort of the authorities. We have people like Clinton Estates there, Devon's Community Together and that sort of thing. Again, with that idea of that building and maintaining the ability of the community to respond to these incidents, because they know their areas, they know who's most likely to be affected, and we can support them to deal with that more the better. And I think one of the offers out of this meeting tonight is if other areas are interested in that sort of thing, we're here to help. You know, Dave's really keen to carry on building those relationships locally at a real local level to support the community in dealing with these sort of incidents. So if anyone is aware of that or would like to put people onto us, we're very happy to help. The other things that we're currently focusing on is there's some ongoing things around the Local Resilience Forum, which is attendance at various meetings. So Dave attends monthly. I attend a quarterly one on behalf of Tracy at the Chief Executive Board, and we take an active membership in some of the pieces of work which are outlined down there. The other thing that was briefly mentioned earlier in the report, but I'll mention it in a bit more detail here, is we're a member of the Devon Emergency Planning Partnership. Now, this is a partnership between the county and the districts. Now, being relatively small players in the emergency planning environment, it does make it quite difficult to have the resources to deal with this aspect. I mean, in many ways, I think we're quite lucky having a dedicated resource. So what it does is the county are able to support with some of the policies and procedural work that is very time consuming and difficult to do as an individual authority, and we share that across. So there's common understanding and knowledge and learning of emergency planning across the county, which we found incredibly valuable. It's really useful and means that we're all in the same sort of headspace when it comes to emergency planning. Another key piece of work that will be increasingly so in the next year or so is what was called Martin's Law. It's now been enacted as the Terrorism Protection of Premises Act 2025. And this is where came out the Manchester bombings and the duties on government authorities like ourselves to ensure that we have our public spaces protected. So there are measures coming in for that, and we're working with people like our licensing team and some of the Place Safety Advisory Group, that sort of thing, to make sure that we're ready for full implementation by April 2027. As you see, we've had a workshop with Street Scene and Events to discuss the future impacts. But there's quite a lot of work to come on that one. We've also been providing various localised training. So we've had a strategic course for delivery of the Local Resilience Forum. And I have to say, once again, where particularly with David and myself, where we were heavily involved in the recovery response to the Newton Poplar floods, we were actually called in, and our experiences were utilised around that. So we were able to share the learning across the Devon Emergency Planning Partnership. And that was the recovery training. And we've also done some tactical training and tactical response work. And recently we've done some logist training, logist being for those support staff who have to take records in the event of an emergency situation. The problem that has happened in the previous years is if you do not keep good records when it comes to the inquests and the recovery costs afterwards, you can be found wanting. So it's really important. It's a real skill to take adequate logs. So Dave has organised some training for the most likely logists and sort of moving on again our offer. Various emergency planning training. various things just identified down there. And also Dave has taken part in a couple of exercises. One was around Operation Helios, which was about heat health, and he and another member of staff attended that. And we've also attended a counter coastal pollution exercise as well. And then we've given a sort of a list of some of the areas that different services will get involved with in terms of emergency planning. So overall, once again, we've overcome a number of different emergency planning challenges over 24-25, nothing quite as extreme as in 23 with the pop-up floods, but still challenging. And again, I would re-emphasise that community resilience piece, and then building those networks and anything we can do to help with that one. So emergency events, just as listed in the report, take our operation teams away from regular and put pressure on service delivery. So we need to have good business continuity plans in place. So we're seeing increasing regularity of events, so we need to consider in the near future how we resource teams appropriately to correspond with these various demands, such as climate-related incidents, and hence why we do need to look at the resilience of the team and to make sure we've got adequate resources in place to cover ourselves on that front. So hopefully that's a useful report for members, but obviously if there are any questions, we're very happy to take them.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I thought I'd just pick up one point that Matt had raised with you, and that's in the report under the section Development of Community Network. Obviously it's not for me to tell this committee or even suggest to this committee what it should do. I know my place. However, I just note that we have a councillor's update that goes out each week, within which I would hope all of us read it, digest it, and I just would have thought might possibly be one of those places that Matt and Dave might find space to try and get this information out, because at the end of the day, members go out to their towns and parishes and they are a conduit. So I just thought they may be good ambassadors for this. Not that it's a recommendation or a suggestion, Chair.
No, we'll come on to that one, because I think you're absolutely right, but I think they can do even more to that, because I think the skills are within here, but I'm not sure the skills are being used out there enough. But the desire to help them's there. But I think the question I'd like to debate and perhaps is how can we get more of the town, the parishes actually involved and the community involved? Because the trouble is often you only have a problem when you've got the problem. Well, actually, this is all about how you deal with the problem when it comes, if it does come. So thank you for that, and I agree with you. Ian, you had your hand up first.
Oh, I was going to say on that very point, Chair. I mean, to me, it's the parish clerks that would be able to bring it up, and I think we should be asking them. I know in Sidmouth we're talking about we have an emergency thing, but again, it's getting it on the agenda. There's always other things, and as you say, you don't need to know how to deal with an emergency until do happens, and it does happen. You don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know how it's going to do, and it's like Newton Poppleford. It's not known for its flooding. Oh, sorry, I know it's had flooding before, but it's not something that everyone was aware of or waiting for. And with the global warming and the weather changes, etc., you don't know where it's coming next. So I just think that we ought to be requesting clerks that they put it as an item on an agenda, and they can't go to them all, obviously, but obviously the smaller parishes could probably group together, whereas the bigger towns like Sidmouth, and I notice in there your humanitarian assistance centres in Honiton, Exmouth, West Point, but again, should we have others? Should Sidmouth, is quite a bigger town, and certainly as big as Honiton, should they be having one as well? And this is the sort of advice that, you can't make people, can't make people do it, but again, I think it is our job to, as strongly as we can, recommend that it is put on the agenda, and I think it's something that we should be trying to do, especially if it gets to a point where a parish council's got to fight for itself. I suppose that is very worrying time, and there's probably a lot going on. But again, some sort of preparedness does help. So yes, I think that would be a good thing to recommend.
Thank you. I think we will put something together in a minute. So, Roy, you wanted to come in from outside.
Thank you. I've looked through the report here, but I don't see anything about the world situation. I mean, we could get attacked from Russia. And also, there's an awful lot of people coming into this country, immigrants and things, and we don't really know what their backgrounds are. I think it's more likely we could end up with a terrorist attack. What provision is there for that? Thank you.
I was actually I was at a meeting today, or a number of meetings for the Local Resilience Forum, and we have what we call an MOT, so a meeting on a Thursday, and we have it on a month. And this was one of the issues that was raised around Homeland Defence and the Strategic Defence Review that's just been undertaken. There are issues that are going on, and we're fully cognizant of the issues that are the state-generated attacks and underhand around cyber and stuff like that. So it is something that we're very much aware of. It is something that us as a district council probably wouldn't be involved on that front line of defence, but actually we're aware of the things that are being considered. Some of it obviously is subject to protective security around what you can or can't talk about, but we are very much aware of that. With regards to counter-terrorism, there is a large piece of work that's being done by the relevant agencies to that, and they will share with us what they can, so the fact that we are aware to be able to deliver. So one of the things that we have on our out of hours notification pieces, if there's a change in the critical stance, so if there's a change to critical, it's one of those notification processes that comes through to us. So yes, we are very much aware with regards to all of those malicious type of threats and risks that are posed to us. And although we won't be acting, we are supportive of the Local Resilience Forum and our other partners who form that group to be able to deliver and come together and add value to it.
Thank you for an excellent explanation there.
So Martin's Law is one of those things that puts businesses, small businesses, events for 800 people, or premises that can hold more than 200 people, public people, and it is about that ability to be able to identify those behavioural things that would flag a risk or a threat to those, and taking greater responsibility for the places that we frequent and that we manage, rather than actually anything else. So yeah, so it is a big piece of work that needs to be done, but they're trying to simplify it. The SIA will be the enforcement body with regards to it, and I think the enforcement in that first stage will not be the stick, but maybe the carrot with regards to ensuring the fact that we've got the right people in the right places, the right training, the right guidance. And at the moment, the guidance isn't there. Otherwise, I would be having greater workshops with other colleagues to ensure the fact they're up to speed. But we've tried to get ahead, especially with Julia's team, around the events and those places aspects where we know that it's going to be impactful, and there is that lower level of there's a greater opportunity for counter-terrorism to rear its ugly head. Is that okay?
What's really good to hear there is that the sort of things that Roy brought up, you're working on, people are working on, unbeknown to us. And I think credit needs to go to the governments and local authorities that they are working on this. I think it's reassuring.
It's certainly reassuring to me and my family with regards to the things that we're doing, that others are doing in the background, not just me, but they're doing without me being there. So I wasn't first at the table with regards to understanding around Protect. Protect I was aware of and was doing some work around the legislation, but actually it was part of Julia's team that came to me and say, we need to hold this workshop. Can we understand it? Can we get some more guidance? So it's being self-generated by the teams and departments that are there.
Very good. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was just going to, sorry, thanks, Chair. I was going to ask what we want what we need as a council need to know is our work in this area effective? It's a very comprehensive report, and it's really hard to know it's effective because you're planning for something that you don't know what it will be and when it will happen. And I think there are two ways we can look at our effectiveness. One is the work that the district and Devon communities together are doing to help parishes produce emergency plans. And to answer Councillor Barlow's question, actually the parishes in my ward have been working together, rather than all of them start from scratch, with help from Devon communities together to build their own emergency plans. And I think so that's a positive, and we probably get that sort of feedback from the other partner agencies we're getting. The other side of the coin, though, is and I know we have an official complaints procedure to the district, is it possible to tell from the complaints that come into us whether any of those complaints actually were generated by the way we handled or didn't handle some emergency situation? And if that's not categorised, could that be something we might consider for the future, so that we can get an idea of how effective our emergency processes are when they kick into gear? So if we're getting these number of events which we've documented in the report, and actually there were no complaints to the council, there might have even been some compliments from some of our residents about the street scene helping them out, as it happened in Newton and Poppleford. That will give us some confidence that what we're doing as a district is about right. Thank you.
And I'd like to pick up, I can't comment on the complaints piece because I haven't had a complaint that's come across my desk. So I'll take that as a positive. But what I will say is the fact that there's been lots of learning since Newton Poppleford, and there's lots of things that I look back on with regards to how we could have made a difference to Newton Poppleford if I'd have had the network that I have now. Plans are very interesting. They survive only to the point that actually you start using them, but they give you a basis for working from. One of the things that I do want to get out next year is some work that we're doing with the Local Resilience Forum around community emergency hubs. And they are a community helping themselves. So if you think of a situation where the cavalry hasn't come over the hill, but actually the community to open a village hall or something like that, which doesn't have that rest centre branding, which means you've got to open it up and provide beds, but it's a point of contact. So the fact that the biggest thing is about communication, and it's about the fact that sharing the correct information to get rid of the false information that's out there, to actually put one truth on the door or on the whiteboard. And that's where I'm going next with regards to it. So I don't expect everyone to have a plan, because we've got parishes that have got one member of staff, 2 parish councillors. They can't be expected to deliver anything to the same level that you would with regards to a plan. But being able to be part of that network, to be within the fold, and it's lovely to hear with regards to the work that's being done. And that's what I welcome, is that I'll go out to a community in the evening and invite the local parishes all to come to one village hall. So the fact that each of them knows what they're doing, they can have that interaction when it's at not a point of battle. So yeah, I'd welcome that.
Yeah, just to pick up on what Dave was saying as well, is I'm not aware that we've ever had any complaints about a response to an emergency. And the New Poppleford one is probably the biggest one we've had in terms of our involvement. And certainly the feedback we got was really positive. But I would also say is where there is a significant emergency of any type, there's a review process within the wider local resilience forum, isn't there? So that will actually look at what went well and what didn't. So there was one certainly after the New Poppleford floods. So there is a sort of feedback loop in there. I suspect that when it's actually residents within the emergency process, it's also emotive at the time. You move on quite quickly. And I know there's a certain amount of disquiet in the local community around the New Poppleford event, and I know that's previous year now, but certainly that was taken on board at the time. And we had the drop-in sessions, which is kind of what led to the community network work that Dave's undertaken since. So there was a lot of feedback, but no actual complaints to us that I know of.
Anybody got anything else? So we've got to really decide here what recommendations, and I'm just wondering how we can word something, because I do agree with what John said and what Ian said, and both you, David, and Matt, that actually getting the right message out there is important. And I think we could ask for it to go on the councillor update, but I think wider more, I think we need to offer this to all town and parish councils and see what the uptake is. Now, what I don't know sitting here is how many town and parish councils do need help and how many are up to speed. Maybe that's the first piece of work to do. But Ian is also right, and I'll come into you, and Ian's also right, what he's saying is that examining what we've got would be a good piece of work for all town councils to do. And I'm just wondering how we could word that as a recommendation. Ian, did you want to add something to that?
Well, obviously, you do training on this and you go round. I mean, is it possible to record it? Because, you know, or is there a pack that you can send out of, you know, almost a tick box exercise of, you know, have you thought about this? You know, should there be this? Is there a place you can open just in your little local community? Might be the pub, whatever it might be, that could be made available. I mean, usually the smaller parishes have a better community where they work together and they know who the local farmer is to, you know, if they need help for that sort of thing. But I just wonder if there's a pack that we could send out or even a training video where, so that, you know, because it's too many for everyone to go around every single one, otherwise that's all you're going to do. Whereas if you could call them in here or do something so you can train them more together rather than if they want to come. Because again, a lot of smaller parishes, I'm sure you know, that they know who they're going to go to with farmers to help or whoever it might be. And where they're going to go, where their village hall is used for, and they know that Mrs. Miggins down the road has the key to it and that sort of thing. So,
Marion, do you want, Councillor?
Well, I just thought I would draw attention to the Devon Community Resilience Forum, that Devon Communities Together, because on that website, if you go into where they're looking at plans, etc., it does say that there is a map of current live emergency plans in Devon. So it's actually held by Devon Communities Together. They help to develop plans. They will help any community that approaches them. But the trouble is getting people to realise they need to approach them. That is the problem because, I mean, for example, in Sidmouth, we had a major flood, 7th of July 2012. If you look at the ford, it was 6 foot deep. It was impassable, and you couldn't get in or out of the Sid Valley. So we've already had one of our major flood events. Will it happen again? Probably. When? Nobody knows. But I don't think we had this sort of network to call upon at that time. I just want to draw attention to that.
Dave, you come in first, and then I'm going to make a suggestion.
So just picking up on the point that Councillor Rickson has raised with regards to Devon Community Resilience Forum. So on the 9th of October, they are running a local event for exactly this, to engage with the local community, to those local community leaders with regards to putting out that emergency preparedness. So, and that's being held at the Beehive all day. So it's something that I've put out to all of the parish and all the town clerks. We can put, so the fact that would be something that we could easily offer into the councillors' update around that. The other thing is the fact that my engagement fluctuates with regards to when clerks come and go. And so we have significant changes with regards to partners, I call them partners, community members who take that on. So I have in Northley, I have the secretary from the local village hall, who is a very, very keen member of the public, and she has motivated, I mean, there's other words that the police would probably use, but she's motivated the parish council with regards to being involved in having a community emergency hub. I'm going to come on to around the packages that we can deliver. So we're in the process of looking to develop a package that we can send out there. There is already a package that we can do around councillor awareness that we can deliver. So the fact if we wanted to raise it with the councillors, we could prepare that, and almost like a 1 hour bite-sized session if we wanted to deliver that, so that they can go out and put that message out there. But that is something that's in our work, that's entrenched with regards to doing those packages. We have got the forums that are already out there, and I send out on a regular basis information to all of the parish and town clerks. Some of them respond, and some of them, I think, don't get my messages, but actually I'm aware that they do, but it's along the lines of actually they see, they read it, they deal with it, and they don't want to come back to trouble me, and then they just take that on board. So if you go onto their websites, you'll see lots of them have emergency plans. Some of them are outdated, but the fact is that they've got the plans that are on there.
Yeah.
And just to give you the feedback, the meeting, the Beehive on the 9th was publicised at a parish council I was at last night.
I was going to just, I think what you've demonstrated tonight, an awful lot is going on that perhaps we don't know. So what I don't want to do is put too much work on you unnecessary. And what I'm going to suggest is two things. One, that we do, as John says, ask for it to go in the councillor update next week or whenever, and put in there, dare I say, some of the things you are doing, David. So therefore we're aware. So when we go into our town, we can be asking those questions. And really the second thing I'd say is leave it to you, Matt and David, to discuss really what we've discussed tonight and see, is there anything else we can do within the resources we've got? Because there's no doubt you're doing a lot more than I realised. And so I don't want to, as I said, I don't want to add anything else to your workload. But I want to finish by saying that I think it was an excellent report. And I think what you've demonstrated tonight, again, for the second time, the amount of work this council's doing that we don't know about. And so thank you for that. But with your agreement committee, I would just like that recommendation that goes in that we do get it on the next update for the council's update. Are you all agreed? I can't see there's any issue now. Yes, Ian?
And also, Chair, I think we ought to try and put it on a regular thing. I mean, the trouble with emergencies is unless you've had one, you don't appreciate what you need to do. So I just think that just putting it on there once every 6 months or something like that would be a good thing to do.
We have a forward plan for the members' bulletin that's held by Democratic Services. So if Dave liaises with Andrew, we can make sure that that's added on a 6-monthly basis or whatever.
We will inevitably, but thank you for that. We will move on to item 10. Now, this is purely the scoping document. It's not to discuss the item in any detail. We have got Julia Woodbridge here of the street team, street screen and scene team, who will answer any questions. But am I right that, Sarah, you were going to introduce this one because you wrote the report and then really to ask any questions? But again, I just want, we're not going to debate the issue. It's just any questions, really. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. So very briefly, councillors, the scoping document contains some links to some background information which sets the scene on a national basis. And the point of putting those in is to make the point that this is obviously a massive subject with a lot of implications on a national level. So when I've had discussions with the street scene officers, we felt it was really important that if you want to proceed with this as a scrutiny review, that it's really properly scoped and has a real focus in order to understand what exactly you're trying to achieve. So with that in mind, what I really wanted to do was highlight the second bullet point in the timescale towards the end of the document. This was the suggestion from street scene officers that ward members, well, all members are consulted with to understand the local hotspots where there are particular problems with weeds growing, because obviously weeds are growing on land which is not necessarily under the control or the remit of this council. So in order to scope an effective review, we thought that was probably a very good place to start, with actually having time to consult with members to understand where the real problem areas are, and then a review can be, once we understand that, better scoped up to get a report back to the committee. So,
and I would just add there, we could add the town and parish councillors in on that as well, because I think they will know as well. Now, we're not going to, as I say, we're not going to debate it, but are there any questions you want to raise? And I can see one hand up, and then either Julia, myself, or Sarah we would answer. Ian.
So the 5th of March 2026, Is there any chance that that could be pulled forward by 1 month? Just for the simple reason that obviously the main growing season for, should we want to do anything, should it change? Or should we be recommending that we need more manpower if we're not going to go with glyphosate, whatever it might be, I don't know. But it's like if we wait till March, by the time we get it in March to this report, then we make a report to Cabinet. By the time that will be another season of weeds, if we have an issue. I'm not trying to predetermine what we're going to say, but whatever, it's another season then gone by. Whereas if we were to get it in February, it would give it a chance to actually report to Cabinet in March and possibly get it in for that growing season. You know, why have we chosen March? Is that just 6 months and that's the figure we've got? Can it be done in 5? You know, if you set a target, I'm a great, as you all know, I'm a great believer in dates, that you have a date. Julia's probably wanting to stab me behind, but if you have a date, you know, you can deliver to it usually. And again, the same for ward members could be told that date. If you say March, then March it will be. If we say February, then February it will be. And I just wonder if that is possible. Otherwise, you know, I think it's, you know, everything on there is fair point, and we know it is going to be a difficult subject, you know, and opinion will be very divided on it, and we need to, and this is why we need to do it. This is part of our job to look back. Has the policy worked? And I note the comment there that the committee may wish to focus their review on the above service plan objective. Have we met that objective? And I think they're all fair comment. And is it effective? Or do we need to throw more resources at it? Is there that balance? And that's our job, difficult as it may be.
And what?
It always makes me laugh, though, that we are talking about a few litres, whereas I used to run a garden centre where I was trying to work out how many thousands of litres of Roundup we would sell that the members of the public will then go and spray all over their own, and farmers and all the rest of it. So anyway, thank you.
Julia, did you, what, because I think I know the reason why they went for March, and I don't want to put you on the spot now, but I'm partly going to. It is, I suppose the question is, if we were to meet February, what would we have to do and what support would you need? Whether that be members of this committee doing some work, whatever, how could we achieve it, or is it going to be very difficult?
I think it's achievable to move it forward to February. You know, the capacity issues are being resolved within Street Scene now, so I'm confident that it will be in a much better place pretty soon. So, yeah, I don't see a problem with February. Councillor Arlo raises a good point there, so it's fine.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Ollie, yes.
Just a couple of things, Julia. Are we going to review the effectiveness of the hot foam devices? And also, will we be scoping the impact on biodiversity and wildlife, as well as obviously the impact on weeds and I want to make sure that we're covering all the bases here, and not just thinking about it in a sort of pragmatic way. You know, are we seeing more weeds? Yes, we are. And also maybe considering whether the weeds do damage or whether people just consider them unsightly. Yeah, just what can be done in those areas. But I do want to make sure that the impact on wildlife and biodiversity is not overlooked.
Julie.
Yeah, that's certainly a key factor, isn't it, in the whole thing? So that's got to be part of it, really. Whether we can have any real tangible information in terms of how that's measured, but certainly in terms of feedback, we can look at that within the next report. But yes, the different ways in which we've tried to tackle weed growth and the different methods, that would also form part of this in the review, and, you know, the successes or not of those different approaches. So that will be included. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's absolutely key, that the responsibility of Devon County is really, really clear, because obviously they equally have, there's a huge impact. They stopped their weed spraying before us. I can't remember which year, but actually that's had an impact too. So certainly, yeah, we need to be really clear on which bits are under our remit, and that will be covered within the report.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, thank you. Julie, I'm just wondering, the sort of intro suggests that it might be looking at developed areas, verges, and pavements and so on. Are we going to be looking at undeveloped land owned by EDDC? The reason I'm asking is I think that there is a distinct certainty that if weeds are left uncontrolled, of course, they will produce seed, and they will then spread on to neighbouring land and affect the owners of that land. To give you a specific example, EDDC owns several acres of as yet undeveloped land in the centre of Cranborough. But the weed growth on those areas which are not yet developed and probably won't be for a while, are getting to the point where they're going to create nuisance. And neighbouring landowners include the town council, who are not happy that the weed spread, particularly into the country park, which costs an absolute fortune to maintain, is being affected by it. So are we looking at all EDDC land, or is it just developed?
I'll let Julie answer, but my concern, if you went for a bigger scope, it's going to be the time to do all that work. And it may be we do this in stage, maybe we do the first stage, and it depends what that says, we do then. But what was your thinking? Because I thought it wasn't
I think we'll need to consider the impact of that, but if we can include it and look at those areas as well, we will, but I'd need to know what impact that will have. Obviously, the landowner is responsible for maintaining what is actually in front of them. So in terms of weed growth, that's managing weeds, that's part of it. And as you say, they can start to take over and become really established and then become a huge maintenance problem later on. So yeah, we'll have to, I think about what we can cover within the time frame, because there's quite a lot of methods we're already using, and it's such a huge subject area. We'll just need to make sure we can, bring it back, and it can be looked at and gone through in detail. So yeah, we'll do our best to cover that.
Thank you, Julie. Ian?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, again, I think Julie's just said it there, but there are so many different ways of targeting, and I think on a larger area of acres, I regardless of what anyone did, we should not spray large areas. Period. End story. I mean, I know we don't spray anything at the moment, but I wouldn't even consider spraying large areas, because that has a huge effect on biodiversity on bigger areas. But cutting it and maybe this is something that, again, this is hopefully something that will bring this out of, hiring a farmer. We have a farmer in the room, but you have a farmer who would then cut the weeds down at certain times of year, but you can't leave it too late. No. We've had issues with this in Sidmouth, where, again, on larger areas, Alexanders that were brought in by the Romans that are now a pest, whatever, and once they take hold, they've killed the daffodils, and it's been a bit of a hot topic in the town, to say the least. But again, we can't spray that, but what we can do is cut them down at the right time. But they've got to be cut at the right time, and I think this is something where, if we are short of staff, there are things that perhaps we should be looking at in this thing, and recommendations made to Cabinet that we hire people in from outside, because it is so important, because once you allow these to establish, as you say, it then causes huge amount of problems the following year for street scene, that even if they're back up to staffing levels, won't be able to deal with it because you've had such issues. So I think it's a very important thing. It's not that we're just looking to kill biodiversity or anything like that. We're looking to make our residents' life better and find the correct balance somehow.
Thank you. Last question, then we'll move on. Thank you.
Just want to, I think Councillor Bowles actually just said part of what I was going to say. I wanted to kind of wonder whether somebody can reaffirm that we control management opportunities, and especially on the biodiversity side, as I understand, it's areas which do need more active management
Mm.
get to a state where perhaps people would be happier with them being managed biodiversity area rather than being
Yep.
seen as a weed seed bank.
Mm.
And if that could be done, there's it's making hopeless to please correct me, but if we get management protocol right in some of those areas, the amount of time that that takes to deal with, maybe over a period of a couple of seasons or 3 seasons, can become
Yeah.
less as well. So there's some opportunities there.
There's a win-win. Yeah.
It'd be nice to, I know I'm looking at that from a different side of things, so it'd be really good to do some work.
Man, did you want to come in before I let Judy come back?
I just wanted to highlight the fact we need a duty of care to employees. If you're going to use glyphosate, there are alleged links to cancer, and so this is something that should not be used lightly.
No, and that comes out, and I've read the reports that have said that, absolutely. Okay, so, Judy, was there any last thing you want to answer?
Just to add to your yes, you're absolutely right about the seriousness of using glyphosate, and that's certainly been picked up in the original report written before I joined EDDC. Your comment, brilliant, valid, yes, absolutely, and we're looking at management of areas, and we're looking at wildlife improvement areas, and scaling those up, and that work will be continuing alongside looking at this. So we'll always be looking for those opportunities, and we are now. So definitely ongoing work, but will be included in the report also. Yeah.
Last final point on that, Chair. Usually these things are resource rich. That, in other words, to do this, to manage, it's not just, you don't just leave it and it becomes wild and lovely. It requires a huge amount of work, especially in the first, you say 3 years, 5 years realistically. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of work and money that is required to do these things, which again is a balance we will have to find.
Yes. Roy, you're the last person to speak before I sum up. Ollie wants to come after that.
Thank you, Chair. You seem to think that farmers do a lot of spraying. Well, they don't anymore. Certainly not grassland farmers. You can get various types of different machines. They're called weed wipes. And they can be like a roller with foam where the spray is impregnated in the foam. So, like if you wanted to kill thistles, the thistles were much higher than grass, and it would go along and it would wipe the thistles, and they would get the spray. You would not get surplus spray going into grassland like years ago when you had big broom sprayers going on. There's only really corn arable farmers that use those types of sprayers, and you have to be trained. I'm not allowed to go out with a sprayer, certainly not a knapsack sprayer. There used to be what they call grandfather's rights that I could have done it, but not anymore. You have to be trained, and also if people have sprayers, they have to be certified every year. You can't just use any old thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ollie, to finish off.
No, I was just going to solve Ian's problem of the Alexanders. They're edible.
Because the Romans brought them over and used to use them as pepper, and I'm drawing them in a moment just to see what they're like.
Okay, well, I think we will move on. Did you have something to say, Duncan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
I just want to, very briefly, if we could include in the report, if we can, given that we're scrutiny, we're looking backwards, we've got the report which Council or Cabinet used to make this decision some years ago. I think it would be quite helpful to review that again.
Yeah.
So, for example, there were some, for instance, the hot foam sprayers were a new thing and there was some trial done, but now, of course, we've got much better data. We've used them for longer periods. Are our assessments of some of those other options? So, for example, it was noted that there were the possibility of using other voluntary groups to do some of this, but that seemed to not go anywhere. I mean, was that tried? So again, if we can pull some of those out in the report, did we try and do some of those other things as well? That might come into some of this habitat management that actually interested members of the community might get involved in that sort of thing. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, are we in agreement that we will go ahead with this? and then bring it back in February. You all happy with that? Yep, fine. Well, I'd just like to thank you, Julie, for giving an excellent answers to those questions. And I must say, I'm glad you're here because I would not have been able to answer some of those questions. So thank you very much for coming. Okay, item 11, work programme, pages 26 to 39, and the Cabinet Forward Plan. Anybody's got any comments on that? We accept it? Okay. Right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to close the meeting now. Thank you for coming. And I thought 2 items we would be through quite quickly, but obviously some real quality debate there. And thank you all for that. And we look forward to seeing you back, Julie, back in February. But obviously, if you need to talk to us before, and you and I, in practice, can meet up. But thank you very much indeed. Thank you.